Thank you, everybody, for joining. We'll go ahead and get started on our presentation now. And let me briefly just go through a little of the administrative items if we can. My name is Michael Bain. There's a small picture of me there. I'm Vice President of Client Services here at Questel, and I focus quite a bit of my time and energy on the translation side and the filing side and so on. We'll dive into that in just a little bit. A few other things to know is that this session is being recorded, and we look forward to our team will send you a link. We'll email you a link to that where you can link onto it and find the recording and refer back to it if you'd like to. Also, if you'll notice down on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, if you have any questions, and please feel free to send your questions in at any time. We'll capture those, and at the end of this webinar, the presentation, we'll be able to take a few questions and answer those and spend a little time with that. So we'll reserve a little time. I know it's getting close to the end of the day in many parts in Europe, and so we're looking to have this webinar go about 35 to 40 minutes today. So thank you again for joining us. So today we're going to focus on IP translation and how it's changed over the years. Before we dive into those items or talk about the translation per se, we would like to tell you just a little bit about Questel, if we can. A lot has been changing in Questel. We've been around, as many of you know, and as you can see here, we've been around for a while, since 1978. Over that time, we've grown quite a bit. We're now at just a little over 750 employees. I'm happy to be one of them. We have over 1 million users, and we're in 30 countries, and we have just a little over 5,000 clients. Our mission, and we'll dive into how this works, and what we're trying to accomplish. And we'll show you what we're doing now. But our mission is to deliver intellectual property solutions across the entire innovation life cycle. And you ask how what does that involve? And here's just a little bit. This is our services, what we do. We do everything from prior art searches and drafting to actually we do international filing. We'll touch on that briefly today, but and translation, and that'll be our focus. And you can see the other things. We do everything from annuities, renewals. We have a paralegal team ready to help you with any of your administrative tasks that you need to do, help you with your docketing entries and so on. And one thing that maybe I'll touch on just a little bit, depending on our time, is just to talk a little bit about this cost management piece that you can see over on the right-hand side. That's a nice piece we offer to our clients that are already using us for some of these other services. We're able to do a cost management where we audit and check invoices for you, and then we benchmark. We let you know what other companies in your industries are spending on different legal fees around the world. We've been keeping information on that for 15 years. So we have a pretty good idea of what things should cost, how much prosecution can be, or just administrative fees for that matter, and fee schedules and so on. We have a full consulting group that can help you with different ways. And we have an e-learning library as well. It teaches you everything from basic IP, what a patent is and how it works and why they're important, to some very sophisticated things along the IP space. So those are some of our services. Um, here's a little bit more about our team. You can see who we are. And we've got in-house attorneys. We have a network, our own network of foreign associates, these foreign agents across 30 different countries. We have IP strategists, and again, this is our consulting group and our researchers and our team that can do IP searches for you. We have a whole paralegal, wonderful team of paralegal here in the U.S. We have a team in India, and if you're looking for ways to help with your administrative needs, we can help you with that. And of course, here on the right, and this will be again our focus of today's conversation will be our translation capabilities. We have 80 in-house translators and reviewers, and we have our own network of subject matter expert translators. We'll talk about them in a minute, but we have over 12,000 translators doing work for us right now. Many of them have been working for us for decades, and when I say decades, like for 20 plus years. They're true subject matter experts, and they're When you find really good translators, you want to keep them. So a little bit about our global footprint. Uh, you can see where we have offices. We have 22 offices located around the world. Our translation arm has 8 offices globally. We have a really heavy focus in Asia and Europe as well. We have 4 offices throughout Asia. We're in Yokohama, we're in Tianjin, China, and we're in Taipei, Taiwan, and of course we're in Seoul, Korea as well, where we have full operating and production offices with directors and so on. So talk about that. I myself, if you want to know, I work out of we have a large office in Provo, Utah, which is in the western part of the United States, and that's where I'm calling and sitting at the moment. So let's keep going a little bit about us. Let me load this slide up, and we'll come back and discuss just a few of the items here so that you can see what they are. But as you can see, we do a lot of translations. We've been doing translations, specifically intellectual property, patent application translations for over 2 decades. Over that time, we've built up quite a great panel or a stable of clients, a great clientele. 15 of our clients are among the top 25 PCT filers in the world. They trust us because we really do use true subject matter expert translators. I mentioned that how many we have. It's important that you find these subject matter experts, not just linguists, but people that understand what it is they're translating. Something we'll talk about the process in a little bit and how it works and how you're assigned a project manager. But every account has a little project, has a lead project manager and another project manager. So you have a team. We have a little redundancy built into the project management so that everything that happens or that you'll need is covered by us. And we're going to talk a little bit about this bottom left-hand box about glossaries. Um, Glossaries are a really big deal, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but specifically client-specific glossaries. And we'll talk about the difference of just people say they have glossaries and what that means. We want to talk about specific client-specific glossaries. Again, I've mentioned our offices. We do have the strongest infrastructure by far throughout Asia. And we do translations. So one of our feathers we like in our cap is we do a lot of translations for WIPO. We do a lot of their abstracts and different reports that we do for them. It's kind of a nice thing to be able to help them and do that for them. Another thing we'll mention briefly is these ISO certifications. It's important that your processes, and that we have 2. One is just in general for companies that follow certain regiments and processes. They come and they audit every 2 years and make sure you're still following processes very closely and that they make sense. So we have one just for general for business, which is a difficult one. And then a few years ago, they came out for a language service provider specific certification, which we were also one of the first to have and obtain that. And we'll show you how that comes into play in a little bit here. But let's go on and talk about just briefly a little bit more about us before we dive into what to look for in translations and how the translation trends are changing. But it's important to find a company that's really driven through technology. A few years back, we invested quite a bit of money in our own Questel platform. We call it Savanta. It's a centralized platform, so it just automates everything and it keeps track of everything very closely for us. So as a project gets set up in there, it's followed from the very beginning when you deliver, or you can actually deliver through our this portal, our Savanta portal, and so that it's highly secured. And we actually keep all of the work done in Savanta. So all of our team, our project management, and our language coordinators, they all work. All they do is work on this platform, and so do our translators. All work in this platform. And you can see there in the middle, like if you go through our translation, uh, we do have a little AI that we use, and we have translation memories and these client glossaries, and we'll talk a little bit more about those areas here in just a moment. And even the editing and all the quality controls, all controlled in this in this platform. So make sure you look for a company that has a platform that's universal. All the offices are using that same platform. Everything's done in real time, and everyone stays on the same page. Now, to dive into the market trends and what's happening now, what are we seeing with our clients? Again, we have this vast panel of clients that we do work for, and we have monthly meetings with them, and we have quarterly on-site visits with some of these really larger accounts, and we ask them what their challenges are, and without without exception, everyone's being pushed. There's pressure to somewhere find more efficiencies, right? They're all being asked to either cut the budget, just here, either from 6% to 20%. So we've seen companies that visited with a company just this last month that was being pushed. Their IP department was being asked to find ways to cut 30% of their budget. We understand that you have to become more efficient, and that's where we come in to help. You have to find a company that can help you drive those efficiencies. And of course, without on that second point, it has to still protect the IP that you have. You want to make sure that the scope of those patents are being protected, and that there's no jeopardy of litigation and so on. So we help with that as well. And then of course, the maintenance fees and the overall cost can get very, the long-term cost of owning IP can be expensive. One other thing that our clients have been telling us is that by us doing the translations for them, they've seen a reduction in the office actions, which has helped them quite a bit and saving their costs as well. We'll come back and touch on that as well. If we can spend just a few minutes actually here. There's two graphics here. I mean, it looks like one large one, but if you'll look just on the left-hand side, that graphic depicts the way translations and the work has been done for years and years. And the trend is to go from this model to a centralized model, or to a Questel model, and we'll explain how both of them work. So if you look into the left graphic, you can see that the building in the middle, let's say that represents your company, and if you obviously this represents a company here in the United States, and if it was a company in Germany or France, there would be a French flag or a German flag on top of those offices in the middle. And so that the office with the R would represent your company, and then the three offices around them would be your local agents, or what we refer to here in the United States as our outside counsel, right? And we work closely with them. And then when a translation needs to be done, usually the a word is instructed, or the instructions go to the outside counsel or your local agents, and then it's sent out to your foreign agents, these foreign law firms, to get to find the translation for you, and to also get it filed, and then to follow that matter to prosecution until it's granted. The step that we want to focus on here that's being replaced actually is typically these foreign agents. Some of them have a small translation department within their own company. Many of them, I'd say even most of them, still have to send that translation out to translation houses. And these translators that we have depicted in this graphic in the black box. And the reason we put them in this black box is because it's a little indicative of the fact that you, as your company, you probably don't know who's actually doing the translation. You don't know what their background is, what their level of expertise is, but you're putting your trust in your foreign associate, that they're using somebody that can do a decent translation, you hope, and then it'll come back to the foreign associate, where a patent attorney will spend time reviewing that translation and make sure that it looks okay, and they will fix it. And the truth is, you're spending quite a bit of money to have that review done, and to have them go through not only the claims, but all the way through all the description and the specifications of the matter, and checking the translation and making sure that there's some expertise on the content of the subject matter. And then it obviously will get filed. This is the way it's been done for years, and I'd still say that the majority of companies are still doing this, but there's been a big push by many companies to look for ways to do it better and to do it for less. And that's it's sort of shown that's how we're this graphic on the right is trying to show you that same company would still use their local agent or their outside counsel to help them if they do, or they can instruct us directly to Questel, and then that goes to our project manager, who's represented by that person in the middle of the circle, and that person in that subject matter then uses the whole team, the language teams that we have at Questel. We make sure that we use native speaking subject matter experts. We'll touch back on that in just a moment. That we've built up a glossary of terms specific to your company, and then and they also use those TM databases. That TM stands for translation memories, and I know many of you have heard of those, and we'll talk. I'll have some discussion on that in just a moment. Once once that the translation's all done, we either deliver that to your foreign agent and send you a receipt and that CC you on that correspondence, of course. Or another thing that a lot of our companies are asking us to do, and it's a service we offer, is we actually can file it directly into the country for you. It's a very administrative task to do the filing. Um, but once it's filed, we can we so just to be very clear, we can either file it for you and then turn it over to your foreign associate, to the law firm that you work with. We want to make sure we protect that relationship you have and keep them very involved in the legal work. Or we can send it once the translation is done, we can send it to them, and of course they can file it. We find that we're able to save at this step as well, save our clients some money as well. We can do it for less. We have our own agents set up that can do the filing in a very cost effective way. But we want to make sure we emphasize the fact that we are not trying to replace your foreign associates now. We don't we want you to keep that relationship. They understand you, they understand your company, and of course the science in which your patents what your patents have. Uh, so we'll come back if you have any questions on that. Um, so this is it. The trend is going from traditional, which is on the left, to a centralized model, and this is the model we pioneered 30 years ago, and we've been doing this for a couple decades now, and we've gotten very good at being able to save money and to streamline the process. And this slide talks a little bit more about how do we save you money? How do we help your you know maximize your budgets to either save a little money or to file more in with what you're currently spending, and then to get into more jurisdictions if that's your strategic plan. We've talked already a little bit about how to get have your translations done by true subject matter experts, people that understand the science. That's something that we can actually provide you a CV or a resume of the person that actually did the translation, that will do the translation for you. Another piece of this that we aid our translators with is a very kind of sophisticated technologies that we use to build these glossaries and translation memories. I think it's important that many LSPs say they build glossaries, but the truth is they typically build a list of science-related terms and that's shared across all of their clients. We try to make sure that the glossary is very client specific and that there's no sharing or cross pollination or quite frankly cross contamination. We make sure that we use these glossaries specific to what your applications say. And of course, that leads to a very good consistency and a high quality translation. We talked about savings. We know this is an important piece that everybody needs to find ways to do the same work they're doing right now for less, or to get more for less even. We find most of our clients are able to do both. Most of our clients were saving at least 20%. They're able to turn in to their headquarters, to their finance department, that they're saving money, and they're actually able to take some of the savings and file more broadly. And And lastly, I'll touch on just another way to save a little bit, even additional on top of that is if you'd like us to even do just that filing piece where it's actually filed in the foreign patent office, and then once it's filed, we turn it over to your foreign associates for them to do the prosecution work. It helps with the process, it saves money, and again, it saves on time on the administrative side as it all comes, the translation charge, the filing, all comes on one invoice for you. Um, let's move on to talk a little bit more about how glossaries work. This is again, I've talked about how this is an important piece of the work that we do. We typically go through and we build these glossaries at the very beginning of our relationship. We make sure that we understand. We go through and we actually run several of your patents through our software, through our Savanta software, and so that our platforms can see this terminology that you have. And then we go about building where, and we understand where you're targeting to file, and then we build these glossaries for each one of those languages and each one of those target countries that you plan on filing. Now, something we also do that's very interesting, I think, is if you look down at the fourth bullet here, you can see that we actually store the feedback we get from your foreign agents. Um, Now, this is an important piece because there's always feedback. They love to give feedback, and we love to get feedback. We're always trying to continuously improve our process and our translations. So not only do we build glossaries based on your terminology of the applications that you have and that you'll be filing, but we also build in preferences. There's preferred language that foreign associates like. So every law firm that we do work with, regardless of what country they're in, we build these glossaries to match the preferences they have. I hope that makes sense. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to come back and answer any of those. The important thing that this does, and this is something that, quite frankly, the old traditional model does not allow, is that the scope of your patent is protected equally throughout all of the jurisdictions you file within which you file, meaning that there's communication among our translators and it's all centralized so everyone knows that what the terminology should be. So regardless if it's being translated into English or if it's being translated into French or to Chinese, that scope of protection will be applied equally and continuously. So you have a nice continuous filing. Let's move on and talk a little bit about translation memories. A lot of people have heard of translation memories. Let me give you, and probably many of you know what I'm about to say, and good on you, and good for you. But let me make sure it's clear what translation memories are. Translation memories are focused around groups of words, like phrases or complete sentences. And in those sentences, they're exact matches. And basically in our industry, we actually call this we call it translation memories, but we refer to it as leverage because what we're doing is we're leveraging a new translation against a previous translation. So we've already translated many of the same words, and you can appreciate the fact that, and we know that the people that are drafting, the attorneys that are drafting your patents, use templates, and there's repetitive phrases and words that are used, and we realize that. So what we do is we build this translation memories, and before our translators even start working on translating, it's on our platform, the Savanta, and it goes through our software, and it comes out to the translator, and the translator, he or she will actually see what's already translated. Now there's exact matches, and there's also something called, and most of you have heard of this term, fuzzy matches, where sentences are almost the same but not quite. But still, if we're able to identify those sentences or those phrases or groups of words, it saves time and it saves you money. Um, that third bullet, here's the thing that many people don't quite realize. Due to the nature of of innovation and what patents are, and the fact that different people start writing patents and there's changes in the templates or the boilerplates, if you will. Um, the real the real effectiveness of a translation memory is only about 2 years. After about 2 years, it's cycled through enough where something that we translated 4 years ago doesn't always have a very a direct effect on new translations. But with this all said, you can see the benefits at the bottom. This does help lower your costs. So this is why it's really helpful to go with a company, an LSP, someone that'll translate these applications for you, that use a software that have a really sophisticated technology that can capture this, because they'll save you money. And what we actually do, um, because we go through and we see what kind of leverage or what kind that we can expect from doing your work, and that helps us give you pricing. We have standard rates, we have discount rates, if you will, to high volumes, because we know we'll be able to use more of the leverage. But it saves you money. We look for ways to save you money. It increases the turnaround time, obviously, if we don't have to translate everything. And more importantly, we really do feel this. More importantly than the cost and the turnaround times is to make sure the quality is good. It increases the quality and that consistency. That consistency, that is so important, that scope. So you have a consistent filing across all of the jurisdictions you're filing in, so that protection is equal. So I think you understand that. Let me know if you have any questions on that. Um, Finally, we're getting close to wrapping up here, as far as our process goes, and what you should look for. Um, as I introduced the process that we use, and this is just a general slide that will get to show you a little bit about what we have, and this is how our process goes. But this process has been, as you can see, we put back down here at the bottom of our screen here, our ISO certifications. This process has been ISO certified. We're continuously improving it. But basically, you can see what happens as a document comes in, it gets prepared, it actually gets compared to make sure it's the right document, that the one that's been matches the priority filing and so on. And then it gets put into Savanta, and Savanta pushes it right through our automation and makes sure that we're getting the translation memories used, and that the glossaries are being identified, that words in the glossaries are being identified. And then it goes to the translations, and a translator spends time on that and makes sure that it's all translated correctly. And these are in-country translators. Again, you do want to assure you that you have good linguistic translators, but again, you want them to understand the science that they're using. Most of our translators have higher education, graduate degrees, or PhDs even in the science in which they're translating. Of course, after they're done, it goes through our revision and it comes in-house, where we have our in-house revisors do quality control and check and make sure it all looks right, and then there aren't any errors. It then goes to formatting to our DDP, we call it our desktop publishing group. And they make sure that the patent application is put in the right format for each one of the countries in which it is going to be filed. We know what their requirements are, and so it's delivered back to you or to your foreign associate, file ready. Before it gets sent over, of course, it goes through two more quick checks. It's checked again for language control after it's been formatted, and then it gets delivered to back to our your point of contact, our project manager. Make sure to verify it's the right item, matter number, and that it's the right thing going to the right place. And then, of course, it's delivered. Again, we can deliver it to your foreign associate for them to file, or we can actually, at that step, and I think most of our clients have found that we're able to save them a significant amount of money. We can actually do that administrative task and file it for you in the country, and then turn that right over to your foreign associate once it's filed. Either or is fine with us. And then, of course, we appreciate the feedback that comes, so that we can continue to get improvements in the way we do it. So that's kind of a general look at our process and our workflow, we highly recommend that you make sure you understand wherever you send your translations that you understand how they go about doing it. Do they use true client specific glossaries, or are they using general glossaries that are related to the science? And then everybody, even all the companies they do translation with, can use those glossaries. We try to make sure that our companies have some protection on that as well. So, uh, and that kind of sums up the process of how IP translations are changing, and the direction in which they're going, and how it's best to get them done today. Um, I do checking the time here. We're at just a little over 33 minutes, and so we have a few minutes to take any questions if you have some questions. Um, and other than that, I thank you. But I do see we have a few questions that are being put together right now that have been sent to me. Uh, as I'm waiting for those, oh, good. There's a couple questions here I'll address. But as you see down at the bottom, if you have any more questions, please reach out to me directly, and I'd be happy to address those for you. And um, my email's down at the bottom of the screen. But we have a couple questions related to uh, length of time. How long does it take? Turnaround time. So I see, how long does it take to get a translation done? What are how are the turnaround times? How long are they? Um, so just a rule of thumb. I'll make a real simple answer for you. A good subject matter expert can translate um, between 2,000 words and 2,500 words per day, right? And that's a good translation pace. So if you take the length of your application, and let's say you have an application that's 10,000 words, you can just divide that by 2,500, and that'll give you four. So you know it's going to take about 4 days to do that translation. And and truthfully, I'd say I would add a day, because there's the setup, and we do that comparison at first to make sure we have the right documents and so on before we even start the translation. So a 10,000 word application would take about 5 days. A 20,000 word application would take uh, about 9 days, 9 to 10 days. The thing to keep in mind is that's the typical time. Can we go faster? Can we get more translators on a project if you have a rush project? The answer is yes. But typically, the comfortable time frame is what I've just mentioned. But we have clients that have rush projects that come in all the time, and of course we can. I would even say that one of our finer things that we can do is we can get projects done faster than most people. We've had projects come in on a Friday that are over 100,000 words, and they have to be filed by Monday, by the close of day, close of business on Monday in China, and we get it done. So we can talk about that in more detail if you have any questions. Um, I do see another question. See, this one says, "Do I have to use your foreign associates?" Um, the answer is no. You don't have to use any of our foreign agents. Of course not. Um, we can if you want recommendations, or if you're looking for a new agent in any of the countries, of course we can give you recommendations. Um, and and the only time that we really our network of agents come into play is if you'd like us to do that filing for you, and just that the administrative piece of just filing it, and then once it's been filed and we have received receipt, we then of course turn it over to your foreign associate to do the prosecution work. If that's what you'd like. How's our time? We got a few more questions. Let's do one more. This will be the last one, and then I promise I'll respond by email to the other questions. But let's see, we have another one that says you have to pay for words in. Oh, I see where they're asking. Do we have to pay for words that are in the translation memory? Do you have to pay if it's already in there and we don't have to translate it? Is there a cost associated with that? That's a good question, and I apologize if I wasn't very clear on that. Um, let's go back just to this slide for just a moment. If if the answer is, again, we actually look at your work before we give you the price. We want to know how much leverage we can expect. And when I say leverage, how much translation memory do we think we'll get from one project that will help us with the next project, right? So we run several of your patents through our software, through our Savanta platform, and it gives us a percentage. We can see that we'll have, we'll see a leverage rate of 10% or 15% of 22%. I think you get the point. And so based on that average, we're able to give you pricing so that up front, even before we've even realized any of those savings through future work, we know what to expect over the next year, and so we give you a price taking into account that good translation memory you have. Now that said, occasionally you're going to have something that has a very high level of translation memory, and those, of course, we'll look at and make sure that we give you an additional discount on those. So I hope that helps. Um, we are about at our time, and I promise we'd keep it short. I know it's a Friday afternoon in France and in Europe, and I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Thank you again for joining. If you have any questions, and there are a few more, we'll get to you. We'll send you emails and answer those. But again, we appreciate you joining and hope this was informative and helpful, and we look forward to working with you. So thank you very much.